experience does Kash Patel have to run the FBI?
He has amazing experience.
No,
In
he
fact,
doesn't. He wanted to start a UFC fighting
He has
program
amazing
in the FBI.
experience. I got 5 words in.
Charlie Kirk takes on Niyemah, known for her appearances on Jubilee. In a tense debate over DEI, meritocracy, and government appointments, the conversation gets real fast, with Charlie Kirk being pressed about race-based programs, pilot qualifications, and even top cabinet members under Trump. But as always, Charlie Kirk stays cool under pressure. Charlie Kirk doesn't just defend his view, he breaks them down in plain language and flips the script with logic and facts. Charlie Kirk dismantles assumptions about what diversity means in practice and challenges Niyemah's examples with real-world consequences. Charlie Kirk isn't there to win points. Charlie Kirk is there to speak truth, and it shows.
Hi, Charlie. Yeah, you're going to have to lower that one for me.
What's your name again?
Thank you. Niyemah, how are you
Niyemah,
doing?
it's been a while.
It's been a minute. How have you been?
Great.
That's fantastic. You did do that. I mean, you didn't, but Trump did. Yes.
The collective we, yeah.
Yes, the collective we. So speaking of Trump, I do want to talk a little bit about his policy on DEI. As you know, in his first weeks in office, he signed the executive order declaring that DEI is both unlawful and a threat to national unity. And I just kind of want to ask you to elaborate on why DEI is unlawful.
Well, based on the Civil Rights Act, which I have disagreements with, but based on the Civil Rights Act, which is the law of the land, it says you shall not discriminate based on color, race, creed, or origin of nationality.
Yes.
And DEI definitionally does those things.
How does it definitionally do those things?
So, for example, if you say you are going to hire a certain amount of people or have scholarships only for a certain people, you are then prejudicing against another group.
Which group are you prejudicing against?
White people, Asians as well. I mean, white people are an easy one off the top of your head. So, for example, in the Harvard admissions case, I said this earlier, the average test score for a black individual was around 1,300 SAT, about 3.2 GPA. For a white or Asian, it would be about a 3.9 to 4 GPA and about nearly a perfect SAT. So you are disenfranchising and stereotyping and prejudicing against whites or Asians in favor of blacks.
You're not prejudicing against whites or Asians, though, because DEI is not on a race basis. DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion of all people. Affirmative action is what is intended to address racial inequality, but DEI isn't on the basis of race.
Well, so DEI is a project of the affirmative action movement. So one comes before the other. He signed an executive order against both, for the record, so I wasn't sure which one you were talking about.
I'm talking about DEI.
So DEI, it depends what we mean in practice. So I can give you one example. There are black-only graduation ceremonies at certain schools, or black-only dormitories.
But those are kind of student-led.
I'm
part of a black-only
play this out.
and it's run by students. It's not
fair
through
enough.
the school.
Let's play it out. So if there is a black-only, let's pretend, which it's not, that building is black-only. If I said that, if that building was
I'm
white,
like the campus center?
No, I said let's
okay.
pretend it's
yes,
not.
hypothetically, yes.
Hypothetically, if that building was white only, you would agree that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act.
Yes, but there are no buildings on campus that are black only and white only.
Well,
and by the way,
but there are on other campuses.
No,
though.
but in those dormitories that are like culturally specific, you don't have to be that culture to live there. They're not going to not allow you to be black to live in a black dormitory.
You would
no,
be
Ujima
surprised.
at Stanford. White people do live at Ujima. That's not.
I don't know about that specific example, but if it says black-only dormitory.
But it doesn't say black only.
But okay, how about this? How about if we had? Well, it does.
It doesn't. Where? Where does it say that?
Just to be clear, well, in the title. But let's
no,
pretend
but
it says
where?
black.
Like what school? Where does it say black only building?
Eastern Washington University, Portland State University, just off the top of my head, San Jose State University.
They say black only dormitory. And if a white person were to apply to live there,
it's a black affinity cultural space of which only black individuals are accepted and governed for black individuals. But can we have white affinity cultural spaces?
You can have a white affinity cultural space. The activity is, the issue is that you're saying black only. It's not black only. It's a black affinity cultural space. But anyone is invited if they would like to participate.
I would, first of all,
you cannot legislatively not allow someone of any race to participate in something. That doesn't exist.
We agree. That's the spirit of the diversity, equity, inclusion order, is that DEI in practice, again, we have to go through example after example, is discrimination, prejudice,
Well,
and
let's
segregation.
talk about DEI in practice. Let's
Okay.
talk about DEI programs in the workforce, because DEI programs in the workforce happen to benefit veterans. They benefit people with disabilities. They benefit people at an economic desperate. They benefit lots of people that is not just on the basis of race. And to me, it feels like you're conflating DEI with pro-blackness or black only,
So
which is
let's-
not the definition of DEI.
So let's take a high-profile DEI example. Is that cool? Just maybe one we can play around with.
Okay.
Which I got me in a lot of viral trouble, which I don't care. Which is pilots.
I got in a lot of viral trouble too. I
Hey.
was debating this guy,
I
you know.
And he kept interrupting you.
He did.
I know, right? Which is this? Which is that, let's say DEI, a project of DEI at United Airlines was that we want to get 40% of our pilots to be black or women of color, or women or people of color.
40%.
50. I'm sorry, to get up to 50. It was at like 6%. So therefore, they wanted to make a push towards that, and it was currently at 6%. We look at that and we say, wow, you're going to have to lower standards to get to that goal.
Why would you have to lower standards?
Well, because
Are you saying that black people are
no,
inherently inferior?
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that black people are only 13% of the population. So you want 13% of the population.
Women are not 13% of the population. Women are 50% of the population.
Yeah, but women do not make up a majority of people that want to become pilots. In fact, the vast majority of women don't want to be pilots.
Maybe they would want to become pilots if the barriers for entry
Well,
weren't.
see, now we're going down a different but equally fun direction, which is male-female differences. Men much more likely want to be involved in heavy machinery mechanics. They want to be pilots. They want to be tank operators. They want to be police officers. Whereas women much more likely want to be, I'll get to you, Mason. Don't worry. And I remember your name.
Yes, can Mason go? They won't let him go because he's
I'll
not
let Mason
USC.
go. I'll
There
let
we
Mason go. But just, Mason, have some patience. We did this last time, okay? But do you understand, at least from our perspective, because it's no good for us to go back and forth again, maybe from our perspective, that we worry that the pursuit of diversity can mean the compromising of excellence.
In my opinion, this is the moment where Charlie Kirk just drops the hammer. Charlie Kirk explains, in simple terms, why chasing diversity for the sake of it can water down quality. Charlie Kirk isn't against difference. Charlie Kirk is against sacrificing skills just to check a box. This is where Charlie Kirk flips the entire conversation, and honestly, it hits hard.
Charlie Kirk, this country is diverse. You can't just say the pursuit of diversity is compromising excellence. Diversity literally just means difference. This country is 13% black. It's 14% immigrant. It's 1/5 of every person in this country is Hispanic. It's 7% homosexual, and 50% of the country disagrees with you.
Okay,
Diversity is America. You cannot say
all of that is
that
true.
you
Hold on.
are America first if you do not care about half of America.
I care about them so much, in fact.
You care about them so much that you
hold
don't
on.
want to give them
I didn't interrupt you.
access
I care
to
about
equal rights.
Well, hold on. No one said rights. Hold on a second. No. I care about
It
them.
is. It's equal rights. It's
Niyemah,
equal
let me
access.
finish. Let me finish. Now, who's interrupting who? I care about them so much. I want the only thing that they're ever judged on is to be their character or their competency, not their skin color.
Okay, so you want it to be a meritocracy. You want it to
Yes.
be so let's talk about a meritocracy.
Okay.
What experience does Kash Patel have to run the FBI?
He has amazing experience.
No,
In
he
fact,
doesn't. He wanted to start a UFC fighting
He has
program
amazing
in the FBI.
experience. I got 5 words in. He was the most important thing. He was a public defender.
That's not what that's not
Hold
the
on.
job of the FBI. He has
both
no experience in
Hold
the
on.
FBI.
He was a public defender and he was a special prosecutor.
Was he ever a member of the FBI?
No, but
He doesn't have the merit to have
hold
that
on a
job. All right,
second.
let's do another example.
But
What
I'm
experience
not
does
done.
Linda McMahon?
I'm not
what
done.
experience does Linda McMahon have to run?
She
the
ran the
Department of
Small
Education?
Business Administration in the first term, which is a big organization. She was the head of the SBA.
When she was the CEO of
No, hold on.
WWE,
I'm not even talking about that. She ran the SBA. By
one
the way,
of her employees was engaging in pedophilic behavior with their
Well,
ring boys
okay,
under her watch.
I'm not gonna defend
and now
that,
she
but
is
she-
somehow qualified to be responsible
she
for
was
all of America's
one second.
children.
Hold on a second. She was previously a cabinet secretary and then became a different cabinet secretary. That's like a one-to-one.
Yeah, and then before that, she was enabling a pedophile.
So what you're first of all, I don't know about that instance. If that's true, that's wrong.
That's very much
However,
true. How do you not know about that, Charlie?
I don't
it's
know
like
about every-
very much.
Okay. again,
public information. It's really important to know that the head of the Department of Education is currently in a lawsuit.
But let me finish the point, which is that the WWE can be easily made fun of. That's a serious business, though. It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
It is, that engaged in pedophilic activities.
Of which I denounce. I don't support that. However, she was head of the SBA, and now she's head of the Department of Education. Tell me another unqualified person.
Another unqualified
is
person?
Marco Rubio
Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
No, actually, I think Marco is slightly more qualified.
Let's talk about Hegseth. He's the most qualified because he actually accepted enemy fire and lost loved ones and friends of his own.
That doesn't make you...
Hold on.
Dude,
to run the U.S. military, to be a warrior, not just an academic general, that's very important.
Look, dude, I respect veterans. My boyfriend's a veteran. I love veterans. That being said, not every person who is a veteran is qualified to run the Department of Defense.
I think he's also shown the last couple of weeks he's doing a pretty phenomenal job. The prior head of the DOD, Lloyd Austin, could barely climb up a flight of stairs. Pete Hegseth is up at 5 a.m. doing PT with the troops, running miles, and then doing an entire day at the Pentagon. And you might say that doesn't matter. I actually think physical fitness and being a good example to our troops is very important when you're the head of the Department of Defense.
Okay, but being the head of the Department of Defense is not about doing push-ups.
Hold on, but first of all, it's actually just refreshing versus Mark Milley and Lloyd Austin. But secondly, I will say the criteria is that he's a warrior's warrior. He's someone that was in the front lines and actually received medals and knows what it's like to lose loved ones. And the other people that were qualified, Niyemah, were people that got us in endless wars, people that never saw combat. I think it's finally time that we have someone in combat that runs the Secretary of Defense. I think that's immensely qualified.
Okay, sure. So we'll take Pete Hegseth for Department of Defense.
Yes, he's doing a great job.
We'll take someone who enabled pedophilia for the Department of Education.
That's an unfair
We'll take Kash Patel, who has never worked in the FBI.
He was a prosecutor, so the FBI's a...
Dude, do you remember what he said when he first got the nomination?
Do you want to go back to Kash Patel for a second?
He said, yeah. I'm like, this is sick.
Okay, can we go back to Kash Patel, though?
That is, like, insanely inappropriate.
Can we go back to Kash Patel? So... he was himself a prosecutor that tried cases. That's a law enforcement mechanism. I think they're asking for someone else.
All right,
Niyemah, great to see you again. Thank you.
At the end of the day, Charlie Kirk seems to have made strong support for his claims against Jubilee star Niyemah. It's a perfect example of how Charlie Kirk handles heat without flinching. Charlie Kirk doesn't stumble or deflect. Charlie Kirk goes straight into the fire with facts and clarity. Charlie Kirk keeps the focus on logic, not emotions. Charlie Kirk proves once again that competence, not quotas, should lead the way. Charlie Kirk calls out the blurred lines between DEI and forced equity. And Charlie Kirk does it all while staying calm, respectful, and sharp. This is why Charlie Kirk continues to grow, continues to lead, and continues to dominate in these debates.